Hey guys, what's going on? I just want to jump on here real quick and get my prediction in about this debt ceiling farce, this absolute ridiculous situation going on with the debt ceiling. And two thoughts about that, guys. Let me get my prediction in first, okay? It's not even a prediction; it's a statement. It's a statement of fact, okay? I don't need even as much history as we already have to make this statement of fact, but I'm just going to make it. The bottom line is the debt ceiling is going to get raised. Okay, I'm not saying I think it's going to get raised. I'm not saying it's probably going to get raised. I'm not saying it's likely to get raised. I'm saying it is definitely going to get raised. It's definitely going to get raised. And I'm going to go a step further. I'm going to predict when the announcement's going to come. And I think they're saying 1 June is a drop dead, right? I think that's the date that's been kind of bandied about. It's going to, 1 June, we default, blah, blah, blah. So while part of me is tempted to go so far as to say the announcement will be made May 31st, just to really bring us right up to the brink, I'm going to log an official recommendation right here, right now, that we will get an announcement on Friday night. So when I say Friday night, you got to give me a little leeway here. I'm going to go with a range between 8 and midnight on Friday, May 26th. Okay? So 2 days from now, today's 24th, we're going to get the announcement that the debt ceiling was raised, and it's a given. It's happening. It's going to happen. It's going to happen before we default. But I wanted to get on record that my prediction was Friday, May 26th between 8 p.m. and 12 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Okay, and I think they're going to do it that night because we're not going to go all the way to the brink. That's too dramatic. I think it's going to be like, hey, lawmakers want to go away for Memorial Day weekend. We don't want to ruin their weekends. The elite class has things to do too on Memorial Day weekend, so rather than just sit around and work in Congress all weekend. So I think that's what you're going to see timing-wise. That gets them home for the weekend. Whether they leave on Friday night or they leave on Saturday morning, but that gets them their Memorial Day weekend back, and it gets us in ahead of the June 1st deadline. Now, the thing about this debt ceiling. And the reason I'm saying that, guys, actually, there's a post I did, got a couple posts up here, YouTube channel, wherever you want to check it out, on Hidden Secrets of Money website, which really is goldsilver.com, and the video they made about the banking system and the Federal Reserve System. In that episode 4, okay, if you go to their website, you look at the 10 episodes, the series that they have on money, basically in episode 4, they explain exactly why the debt ceiling has to be raised. It's not even a point of contention. The whole system is predicated on producing currency out of thin air, right? I mean, that's kind of what the Federal Reserve System does, produce the currency out of thin air. And then every bit of currency that's produced, there's interest due on it, right? So that means there's always more debt than currency, right? There always has to be a constant production of debt just to keep currency in the system. So in other words, if you don't raise the debt ceiling, if you reach a point where you can't borrow anymore, it's very much akin to saying, person X has run out of oxygen for the day. Until new oxygen is provided to them, they're not going to be breathing anymore. Well, guess what? If they stop breathing, they die, right? I mean, you can only stop breathing for so long. So that's kind of the situation here, right? By June 1st, we start defaulting, and then sometime after that, probably not really long after that, the whole system collapses. So the system requires debt to constantly be churned out, right? And as it requires debt to be churned out, if that seizes up, then, that's it. You have no more system. There's no more currency being produced. There's nothing flowing through the system anymore. So in order to keep the system moving along as designed, you have to be able to constantly borrow. The constant borrowing is the oxygen, right? That's the analogy you got to pick up on. Just like we as human beings do not have finite amounts of oxygen allotted to us, we must always have access to oxygen. The system must always have access to or produce debt because the debt produces the currency, okay? So that's why the debt ceiling is definitely going to get raised, okay? I mean, none of these idiots, whether they're, majority party or they're in power or not in power, I mean, they're there right now. They're on Capitol Hill. So none of those idiots wants to be sitting in that position when the system collapses, even if they were in the minority party, even if they're Republican. You know, they have the House majority, but they're not majority Senate or executive branch, obviously. So even if you're in the minority party, you don't want the debt ceiling to not get raised because you don't want the entire system to collapse on your watch, right? You want to be cushy, comfortable, fattened up with pork and favors, you know, escaping to some private island somewhere when the system collapses, right? Because then you're in like a total anarchical kind of situation, most likely. But that's another story, and I don't really care to even think about that kind of thing. So the bottom line, guys, is that's why it's definitely going to get raised. The other thing I just wanted to say, guys, is, you know, you got to just listen to the rhetoric on the debt ceiling. You got to listen to these politicians say things like, hey, we're the richest country in the world. And then during this particular episode on the debt ceiling, you know, but they say it every time, is say things like, we're broke and we can't pay our bills. I mean, they don't say we're broke, but they say, you know, we can't pay our bills unless we raise the debt ceiling. So it's kind of like saying, like, you know, person X in my neighborhood is the richest person in the neighborhood, so long as his credit card limits keep getting raised. I mean, would anybody buy into a statement like that? I mean, that's an absolute ridiculous, ludicrous statement, right? The richest person on the block is still the richest so long as they keep having their credit card limits raised. I mean, it just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. You know, the person who has to constantly have their credit card limits raised is the brokest person on the block, right? They're the brokest person. They're the least wealthy person. They are relying on credit. They are relying on borrowing to live whatever lifestyle they're living. So that's the situation the United States country, government, whatever you want to tag it on, is living in. That's the situation we're in, right? And you know, so it's just the most ridiculous commentary when you hear these things about, you know, yeah, the United States is the richest country in the world, and oh yeah, we need the debt ceiling raised or we can't pay our bills. How can you be so rich and not pay your bills unless you can borrow? Don't we have, sorry about that, guys, got a little interruption there, call-wise. You know, don't we have money in the vault? I mean, I thought we were the richest country, right? Like, why can't we pay the bills? Like, don't we have some reserve store of money somewhere? Like, don't we have an ability to pay bills? I mean, you wouldn't be, how could you be the richest, you know, richest in the world if you can't even pay the bills? Right? Like, I mean, if you can pay the bills, that doesn't make you rich. You have to have much more money than just being able to pay the bills. So it's just so ridiculous. It's so dissonant. It's so stupidly framed for mass consumption. And I think, you know, most people see through this. It's just, you know, we don't really know what to do about it because there isn't much you can do about it. But that's what they're telling us, right, guys? That's basically the story that we've been sold there. So anyway, guys, let's see what happens with the debt ceiling. Just want to get this rant off my chest before it was too late. So again, May 26th, between 8 p.m. and midnight Eastern Daylight Time, the debt ceiling deal will be struck, and the whole, you know, crisis will be solved. You know, this false crisis that we're facing with this debt ceiling thing. Okay, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Drop a comment, drop a question. Would like to hear back from you. Thanks.